It is currently 3 a.m. where I am, and I could not be any more hyped than I already am. I sat down like many people worldwide and watched the keynote live from the Tokyo Dome in Japan here on the 7th of January 2024 at Fanfest Japan 2024. Very excited to share all this info with you. So it started off with the extended trailer, which adds a lot of really cool stuff, which we'll break down in a future video, but most notably includes PICTOMANCER as the announced second job, and of course Kryl representing this from the Scions. Kryl will be included in the duty support going forward as our PICTOMANCER in the duty support content, so expect to see her in the expansion. Very cool to see her debut. Additionally to that, we see at the end of the trailer our female HROTHGAR that I forgot the name of, and I didn't see the translation anywhere of what she's called, but that character is supposedly the daughter of the heir to the throne of Tural. So very, very cool stuff. That's the reason we're going over there in the first place. The release date then, there is no release date publicly available. There is a date internally, but they don't want to announce it at this point. This is because they don't want a repeat of delaying like they did with Endwalker, and for that obvious disappointment. They want to schedule and keep that on track before announcing that, so expect an announcement at a later live letter. Very exciting stuff, and I don't blame them. The new job, like we say, is PICTOMANCER. They talk about this in detail, using a brush and a palette offhand here to actually do some magical range DPS, using that brush to cast all sorts of abilities. This will start at level 80 and starts in Gridania, so obviously you don't want to log out in Gridania if you are planning to play the expansion and don't want to play PICTOMANCER. They work in the medium of mixed ether, they say, wielding a specialized brush to render their imaginings reality. These creations include not only creatures and weapons, but landscapes as well, which presumably means some form of buffing. They explain this in a way similar to a black mage, but slightly less power and more support, but do specify they do not have a resurrection included in their toolkit, so think of that what you will. As evoking such wonders takes time, the PICTOMANCER also keeps instant cast abilities as well as other casted abilities at the ready. Translation for the German version that they make special announcement of here wouldn't make sense, so they actually change it to PICTOMANT instead of a direct translation, which would be duplicant. This means that the localization is more accurate, and that's something they want to keep on point. Very important and interesting that they mentioned this. I think it's better illustrated, pun intended, by actually looking at this trailer footage that they've launched. You can find this actually in all different regions on the Final Fantasy XIV official YouTube channel, but bringing things to life using them against enemies, casting spells, as well as combining that with instant abilities. It is a very vibrant looking magic, and I personally cannot wait to try this. Yeah, I can't wait to see this in motion. It's going to definitely be the most vibrant thing, and I can only imagine what the LB3 might look like. Cover the entire screen in paint maybe, or cover things in neon paint. That's going to be quite the thing to watch out for. The expansion recap here then is covered of why we're going to the new world. They've shown this before, and they talked about the HROTHGAR female, who is, like we say, the daughter of the current ruler of Tural. This character will appear, they say, in patch 6.55. Speaking of 6.55, this is set to release on the 16th of January, so a week on a week on Tuesday. Very excited about that. Soon we'll get to see that second part and the lead up to the expansion of the main scenario. This will actually feature 24 hours of maintenance, so you know in advance, and there will be new equipment applied in that 24 hours for the Japanese data centers, so those will run a lot smoother. Now they talk more about Tural as a place. Far to the west then, they show on the map Tulialal, the big city, and apparently there's a giant bridge that stretches across the continent between the north and south parts of Tural itself. This is divided into 2 separate continent sections, similar to how Stormblood approached this content. However, this will, as they say, be a unified storyline. The new areas are, well, huge variations, and it would appear that both sides of this continent, both separations of that, have very different feels going into them. This footage is absolutely brilliant. We see the high mountaintop areas alongside lower areas, forest sections. Combine that with the Wild West sort of themes of the northern continent. It's really, really quite expansive in every sort of iteration of that word. I really like the sort of like Wild West saloons and all of the different architecture. It would have taken a very long time to come up with this, and I've got to hand it to the art team. It is just breathtaking. So if you were worried that there was going to be just one specific theme in Dawn Trail and you weren't necessarily liking some of the previous footage, I can assure you that looking at this, you'll be like, wow, okay, they really have gone every direction all at once at all the time. Very excited personally to explore. This expansion looks way more exciting and diverse, again using that word again, than any of the other places we have visited as the Warrior of Light. Everything from bioluminescent forests to, you know, things that change depending on day, night, lush forest environments, Wild West desert sections, neon cities. Solution 9 is set to be a neon cyber city, similar to, in my opinion, Esfar from Final Fantasy VIII. It looks like the sort of thing that's been hidden away in the desert there. Very interesting. Hyper-futuristic themes, a city that has towering facades, constructed by a different civilization, they say, than that of Tulialal, so there's lots of mystery there. This will actually be the player hub, Solution 9, so that's really cool. There's also another zone that looks to be below that, they show, called Heritage Found. This area is overflowing with lightning energies, they say. Thick thunderclouds blot out the sun, while streaks of purple levin illuminate the land day and night. A large clash of cultures and technology shown here in this image. It's sure to be quite the different storyline. They then leave us here with this screenshot of a carousel and tell us to imagine what this is, not alluding any further. So very exciting. Hopefully it's some kind of animatronic horror park or something. I don't know what that is. Maybe a boss. I always think these things are going to attack me, let's put it that way. Or it reminds me a bit of Nier with the amusement park, that kind of thing. New allies then. Previously they talked about moblins. They're joined by the giants and the new Hanu, which is a variation of a Vanu, etc., those kinds of beasts. And we've got the Mamuljar people, which they show as to be quite diverse, with subspecies and a vast population across the entirety of the continents. System updates then. Obviously we already know the level cap raises to level 100. The new jobs include Viper and Pictomancer for combat roles up to level 100. The usual content is included, as is to be expected, fates, hunts, and much more. New dungeons are included. They say the progress with the dungeons is going quite well. Yoshi P says that the first pass of quality checks are going ahead as scheduled. Very cool to know. Can't wait to see those. Sporting the same diversity that you would expect from those rich environments that we saw from both the towns and cities, the dungeons are sure to be quite diverse as well, and this trailer really does it quite a lot of justice. That extra foliage layering as well, look at all that. The graphical update is looking absolutely fantastic. I can't wait to see this in person. It's all well and good seeing it on a trailer, but seeing it with your own character is something else. I can't wait to see what they have in store, especially considering this is a clean slate where I personally don't know how to predict anything that's going to happen, especially when you look at the environments that they're presenting in all of this. Everything from that stone sort of tablet Mayan to architecture, from, you know, neon cityscapes. It's quite hard to even imagine, isn't it, how this all takes place in the same game, but I'd love to find out. They talk about new threats. They show this swole-looking cactuar known as the barrel tender on the right there, as well as some familiar characters we saw talked about in the previous Fanfest. Very excited to see where they play into it, and they say there's a large variety of monster types as well included. Duty support updates, like we said, Kryl will be representing PICTOMANCER and will make her duty support debut for the new content. Very cool stuff. Can't wait to see her draw all kinds of things to death. New gear and recipes are added, obviously. Summoner over here, Samurai, Sage, and Gunbreaker from left to right. And then we have Machinist, Reaper, Astrologian, and Paladin. Those are the new sets, looking absolutely awesome. I especially like the Paladin one there. And the Astro, it looks really cool, that fabric hat there. Expansive new lifestyle content is scheduled for Dawntrail. This screenshot shows the new content, which apparently takes you to various different planets. They wanted to give you a bunch of planets for variety, rather than just one, they say, and this new feature is called Cosmic Exploration. This is designed to be either solo or with multiple people, and this will be different from the main scenario, but they want us to keep an idea of what we might see in this content. If you've actually played Endwalker, you'll know that Meteon visited various different planets, and we saw kind of like a weird image of what those could be. Maybe we'll visit some of those locations. Interesting. New Alliance raid then. So this is the Echoes of Vana'diel Final Fantasy XI series. They mention that the Shadow Lord concept art here will feature heavily. So the Shadow Lord is obviously scheduled to be one of the big bads in that story. This will come in patch 7.1. The new 8-player raid then. This thing that looks like a giant graphics card, as people mentioned, the RTX, 70 million series. The raid is called the Arcadion. This is an original Final Fantasy XIV storyline based on nothing. The normal and savage modes are as usual in sequence and release, which will apparently be 1 month after 7.0 releases. The new Ultimate raid is announced. This will be Ultimate Eden, known as Futures Rewritten Ultimate. This is coming in patch 7.1. Very hyped to see the world race for that. Ongoing content updates include Blue Mage updates, Hildebrand, the Deep Dungeon will be getting a new one, the Gold Saucer updates, PvP updates, and new variant mode dungeons. Very hyped to see they're continuing with the variant modes, and I love me a good Deep Dungeon. Can't wait to see if we go up like an Nvidia tower or something. Field operations. So there isn't much information about this. They'll talk about it in a later date, but apparently we're returning to the idea of Bozja or Eureka style content. Me personally, I love that. I know some people might not, but yeah, we're getting more field operations. The limited job will come in the latter half of 7.x, and it is confirmed and named to be Beastmaster. This will be allowed to do content, they say, with other limited jobs in some content, so that we're getting our first limited job related and labeled content, as well as its own content. Can't wait to see what they have. Hopefully something like Monster Arena or something like from 10. Next, they talk about the first graphical update, and they show some more absolutely stunning comparison shots, looking amazing side to side. The various shadows, lighting, the different hair textures, the details on the gear. Oh my goodness, the Highlander looking so cool there with the muscle definition, shadows and shine of the skin, really popping on a lot of these models. The Elezen just looks so much more realistic. And if you stare at the comparison for long on many of these, you start to really appreciate the new ones a lot more. It's going to be very hard to look back at some of the older content in the game as the game slowly develops and, you know, they add this graphical update. So if you go to the older areas, we might see some of the relics of the past. It's going to be really striking side by side. The female Makote here looks absolutely amazing. I love the definition of the shadows and the face paint markings. I mean, it actually looks like paint, doesn't it? Very realistic, very incredible. Rogadin, the stitching on the face was my favorite part of this, the fabric plasters, just the attention to detail of different types of texture is quite drastic in comparison to the original. Lalafels include lovely shadows, the qualities of material. These eyes look amazing. We looked at previously how ears were being done in the previous developer panel in Fanfest Europe. The light on the skin, the tones, it's really obvious and makes them look more natural, but obviously keeping the Lalafels more lovable, as they say. Aura males, Aura looking absolutely astonishing. The neck scales and horns My goodness. Everyone gets a free Fantasia apparently with the expansion's launch, which is very nice of them. They say so that you can fix anything you're not happy with and make the character of your dreams. And I cannot wait to see what we have in terms of different options. Of course, this is only the first graphical update, and they plan to do many others into the future. Very hyped for that. HROTHGAR then, which looks really cool. I do like the extra special attention to the fur, making them look more defined in terms of the fluff. And Viera male here, much more shading on the nose. It looks quite dark actually, doesn't it, in that nose in comparison? You can really tell the difference a lot more on this model. Female Viera, the ears stand out, the hair especially, and the skin. It's so different. I love these new shaders and the new tech they've put into this. It's going to be an incredibly looking game, isn't it? It really is completely different, honestly. Now they talk about the dual dye channel. I'm glad they actually went out their way to make a feature on this. It looks so much better. It just looks so much better. Side-by-side comparisons. They're focusing apparently on making it so that you can dye gear in a much better and more intelligent approach to what sections we can dye, with larger sections of fabric being the focus, which is lovely to hear because there are many pieces of gear in the game that sometimes you go to dye them and you're like, why did that bit dye? I wanted that bit to dye instead. So it's going to make me rethink personally all of the gear sets we have in the game and want to hunt out more gear that I ordinarily would dismiss, I think, personally. Additional updates include this slide for system requirements. I don't think this has changed from the last time they posted this, but it's worth pausing and looking at that if you need to upgrade your PC, for example, for Dawntrail, you might want to. The expanded free trial then obviously includes Stormblood. That's currently live. They have a nice little slide about that. The Xbox Open Beta will be on February the 21st. This is penciled in. It might be subject to change, but in theory on the 21st, we'll be able to see Xbox players joining in. Very cool. The Final Fantasy XVI crossover, The Path Infernal, is planned for an early April release. They don't give an exact date, but early April is right on the peak of all of the hype for Dawntrail, and of course they're going to use this as a way to get people hyped for the release of Dawntrail, which hopefully we can expect in like June, July, who knows? At this point, no confirmation. Yoshi P wants you to try Final Fantasy XVI, doing the whole, I heard a letter from the producer of this game and they said they want you to try out their game and look forward to it, basically. That whole Yoshi P being the director of both games, it's always a laugh, isn't it? Then we have female HROTHGAR. They showed this absolutely incredible trailer. I've watched this a few times already. I really advise you to pay attention to the details they feature in this. Me personally, in my opinion, I think they look great. Of course, it's one thing looking at images and things like that, but seeing it in motion is completely different. Of course, the bitrate of this footage is not great. Admittedly, it'll be much better when we have access to a benchmark or something like that, which they didn't mention, which is a bit disappointing. I was hoping they would do a benchmark date or a release of that, but we'll have to keep waiting. But at least female HROTHGAR got announced and talked about. They say they hail from Ilzabard. Females number relatively few among their population, but are readily identified by their lithe muscular forms, I think that's what it says, equally distinctive in their predisposition for leadership, a Turali people with shared ancestry. They have a home in Tural. The Exbral call Yaktel their home. Well, there we go. There's some lore for you. If you're interested in that, I've probably butchered the pronunciation, but that's fine. This cover art here is one of the last things they show, showing various characters featured in Dawntrail. We are to look at this and probably speculate how many of these characters interact, and also there's some unannounced characters at the top there, which look very interesting, probably to do with the succession of Tulial itself and the Kingdom of Tural. And that wraps up the keynote, with the final note being that they've reached 30 million players worldwide, which is honestly impressive. I'm very, very happy to be aboard this crazy train and seeing where it goes in terms of its population. It is a fantastic game. This expansion looks amazing, and I'm very hyped to see what else we see from Fanfest, and of course all the upcoming announcements. There was no talk about the collector's edition or any of the different editions, so if you're looking for that info, they say they will talk about that at a later point, which probably means a live letter. We don't have a date for the next live letter. It is not at Fanfest, so expect that sometime in the next few months. Very Very hyped to see that stuff though, and as soon as we get info, or any info, I will be sure to make videos on it and share that with you. What did you think about this then? I thought the keynote was quite impressive. I'm glad they gave female HROTHGAR the attention they deserved. I'm very hyped to see what they do in terms of a hat situation now that they've added the final race to the game, or variation of that. I think they look pretty good. I'm very hyped for the new city. Solution 9 looks just, well, neon and incredible, like cyberpunky. Can't wait to see what direction they go. And the diverse landscapes they showed in the area trailer is just, it has me sort of watered at the mouth, honestly. Waiting for this thing is going to be the most torturous, isn't it? Can't wait for 6.55 though. Now we've got a date. Very excited to get my claws stuck into that and into the storyline. Very excited. Anyway, much love. Enjoy the rest of your day. More FanFest news on the way, and I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.